Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is The Saviors, playing at the Atlantic Theater Company's Linda Gross Theater Off-Broadway. Now, before I get into this new play by Bubba Weiler, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel. This is a play that is 90 minutes, one act. It's 4 actors. Single setting, and it is written by Bubba Weiler, who wrote Well, I'll Let You Go, which was a very popular play last season with the critics and with audiences. It started in Brooklyn and then moved uptown, and then I saw a remounting of it at Studio Seaview. And I enjoyed the play. I wasn't as over the moon as some of the other critics, but it's a good thing he had another play in his back pocket, because when you hit it big like he has, other people are going to want to see your work. And I was excited to see this because I wanted to see a different side. And I did see a very different side. And also, this is directed by the same director who directed Well, I'll Let You Go. That is Jack Serio. And Well, I'll Let You Go was done with plywood floors and folding tables, and it was very not a realistic set. It was indicating, and also there were long monologues. And so I was curious to see if this play would be similar, and it's quite a different take. This one is a much more traditional take. We get a traditional set. It's set in a small Midwestern parish, and the set design is by David Zinn. There's just an altar, an organ, the candles, typical side entrance, back entrance, typical church, and it's taking place in the Linda Gross Theater, which is in a church, so they were able to also use the aisles. The audience space was also part of the playing space, which worked really well because we're in a church. So this was a great theater for this play. So I was pleased to see that this was a more traditional play in that we are seeing these 4 actors, the action is continuous, and it really is showcasing that Bubba Weiler has really strong craft. He's written a very strong play for 4 characters. They're all 3-dimensional, well-rounded characters. They all have their separate wants. Their wants are in conflict with each other's wants, and so we get drama from that. So it's a really well-done play. Now, this is also a play that has surprises as you go along. As you watch it, you're trying to understand it and make sense of it, and there's surprises, there's some predictability to it as well. But I want to avoid spoilers, so I'm going to keep all my spoilers for a separate section. So let's just jump right to Bored and Confused. Was I bored? Was I confused by the play? That's the rubric. No, I wasn't bored and I wasn't confused. It's only 90 minutes. As I said moments ago, the craft is really great. And they always say with writers, write what you know. And Bubba Weiler grew up in Aurora, Illinois, where he was an altar boy in a small Catholic parish. And this very much seems to have been inspired by his experience, because what is this play about? The official synopsis: when a lost man takes shelter in their church, 2 altar boys desperately cling to each other as their changing faiths, lives, and bodies threaten to tear them apart. It's kind of obtuse, but that's because they don't want to give anything away. In this play, we've got the character of Judy, played by Crystal Finn, who is a youth group leader. We've got Michael and Paul, that's Ivanhoe and Julius Rinzel. They play the 2 altar boys. And then we've got Julian, played by Stanley Simons, the young man who turns up looking for shelter. I thought the actors were great across the board. I really loved Crystal as Judy. She found some comedy in her role early on, and then she has such a big arc to her character. Both of these young men playing Michael and Paul they're excellent in this. I think it's so great to actually have actors who are the age. I think it really works for this play. And rounding it out, I thought Stanley Simons was great as the young man who turns up at the church. So a little bit more about the play, just so you guys know what you're getting into. It's a simple play. It's focusing around these 14-year-old boys. So it's dealing with the things that they're dealing with in their lives. So it's kind of small, low stakes. I mean, for them, they're high stakes, but for the rest of the audience, maybe we're not thinking of these huge stakes. But the characters are so truthful and so likable that we go on this journey and we understand why these things are important to these characters. It's a very quiet play, so if you're a cougher, please bring your lozenges with you. Maybe eat lunch so your stomach doesn't growl like mine and you're like, everybody can hear my stomach growling. So I really enjoyed this play because it's just well done and well written. It's not an earth-shattering play, but I really related to these two altar boys. The show's called The Saviors because it's about how people feel the need to save other people. And this I could really relate to, especially having grown up Mormon, where we just believe everything. We know the truth, no one else does. We need to help other people understand. And I would have friends that seemed to be going astray, and so I would proselytize them. And in a way, sometimes I feel like, and I think this play is touching on this too, that often the people who proselytize the most are the ones who are really needing to reassure themselves of they're not sure about their own faith, so they really feel the need to push it on other people. So I thought, looking at this very common concept that we see playing out in politics and on television and everything, of religious people really pushing their beliefs onto other people, it was really nice to see it in this 14-year-old mindset and how it was playing out in this smaller way. There was a speech early on about, Michael talks about St. George, who had his life threatened if he wouldn't renounce his Christianity, and he refused, and he was then tortured and had this terrible death, and as most saints do. And I really related that because in Mormonism there's a quote by Joseph Smith that I'm going to get wrong, but it's like a church or a religion that doesn't have the power to ask for everything doesn't have the power to save you. And so we often talked about in church about how to deny your faith is such a terrible thing, and that even if it meant death, they would not deny their faith. And the funny thing is that, as you know, when you're not really being faced with that issue, it's easy to say, oh, I would die for my church. But as I've grown older, I've come to understand the reality of what people will do, not only to save themselves, but just to make a little more money, the lies that people will tell and betray themselves. Anyhow, that's getting off the subject. So, look, I'm reviewing the show. I really enjoyed it, not bored, not confused, but I will have some, I don't want to call them criticisms, but some things that occurred to me that in comparison to really great plays, there are things that maybe this play does not have. And often a really great play to me has a momentum to it where it has an inevitability and you're on the edge of your seat. This play doesn't really do that. This play is more, we're invested in these characters and we want to just see how it plays out. Some of the things that happen I see coming from a mile ahead, and that's different than inevitability, that's just predictability. But then there's also some surprises in the play as well. I also felt that sometimes I was aware of the playwright doing the work that he needed to do to arrive at a certain conclusion. And so a character would do something where in the moment it didn't confuse me because I didn't think that it was outside the realm of the possibility that the character would behave this way. But I was surprised. I was like, oh, it's interesting for her to do that here. Or it's interesting for this character to want to help this person, and we don't really know what's going on inside them. And then once the play was over and I did know what was going more inside them, I was able to say, okay, yeah, I see why they would make that choice. But it also felt a little bit like I could see the playwright creating the play, setting up the structure. But that being said, his craft is wonderful. So, hey, do you want craft or not, Matt? All right, so for those of you who don't mind spoilers, I will elaborate on what I just said, the moments that just kind of surprised me and felt more like the playwright setting things up. So, spoilers. Judy, she runs this youth meeting and Michael is the only one that shows up to it. And she has these little games that she had planned to play with all the people, but of course it's just the two of them. So they play a few of these games to get to know each other. And then she has him do this meditation, which I thought, well, that's really strange. And Michael even comments on it. He says, isn't that a Buddhist thing? And she's like, no, this is a Christian meditation, and that gets a laugh. But she has him like lie on the floor and go through this thing where he's picturing his own funeral and the people that would be sitting there. And then they one by one leave. And she's like, who's the last one there, and what do you want to say to them? And I was like, this is a really weird exercise to do with a bunch of 14-year-olds, much less just one person. So I believed her character was quirky enough where I went, okay, I can see her doing this. But then later, as the play progressed, we later discovered that she's had a recent death in her family. And so I could see why she was focusing on death and funerals because of that. But ultimately, I really felt the point of this moment was to establish the ending of the play and what happens at the very end of the play. So it's just one of those things where I see how the sausage is being made. Another spot is when Michael and Paul are cleaning up and they're going to lock up the church. That's part of their job as altar boys. And this man, Julian, this homeless guy, basically comes into the church. And Michael's like, well, there's a homeless shelter down the street. You should go there. And Paul is like, no, you can sleep here. And I understood, thematically, he's showing us that Paul is the one who's beginning to doubt the existence of God, and Michael is the one who wants to be like St. George and who would die for his belief in Catholicism. And so it's the irony of showing Michael is casting him out, and Paul, who doesn't believe as strongly, is showing the more Christ-like behavior and offering him a place to sleep. So I understand why the playwright would have that in there. It's really showing us something about these two characters. But at the same time, it was one of those things where I was a little surprised that I was like, who is Paul that he, a stranger who he knows nothing about, he's going to risk his job as an altar boy and let someone sleep in the parish unattended, knowing nothing about him. So again, I was with Michael on this. I was like, you don't know this guy. So just a little thing where I was like a little surprised by the character's behavior, but not confused by it. And then later, Paul comes to meet Julian in the church. He brings him food, but he basically says, I came because I want to talk to you. Because he wanted to talk to Julian about his struggle with his belief in God, and it was this one person outside of his immediate circle. So it made sense, so I went with it. And look, these are just little things that pulled me, and by talking about it is giving it way too much weight. I'm being way over analytical, and I completely know that, but this is for these people who like to nerd out and go into over analytical things about theater. So, as I said, wasn't bored, wasn't confused. Comment below if you had a similar feeling with some of these moments in the play. These young actors are still finding their footing. I saw a preview, and I think it's gonna smooth out, and I think this play is gonna just get better and better, and it's already really great. So, I recommend The Saviors. It's good playwriting. I enjoyed it. It's not asking too much of an audience, just 90 minutes. It's a story that I found interesting and inspired me. I've already thought about a lot of this, but it was nice to hear it from a different perspective. It also inspired me to write more about maybe from my teenage years and my experience growing up Mormon and how I dealt with some of these same experiences. So I was really inspired by this play, really enjoyed it. Good acting, good direction, good scenic design, just across the board, really well done. And so to wrap this up, go check out The Saviors. If you are interested in this whole idea of religion and who are the saviors and how we try to save each other and why we do that, I think you're going to really enjoy this play. Okay, so tickets. My friend got tickets. We were seated in row F, I think third and fourth seat in from the aisle. This is a small off-Broadway theater. All the seats are great. It's a really great layout. There's a good rake. It's a great space. So any seat you get in this theater is going to be excellent. So where can you get your cheap tickets? There's discount tickets, $38 digital rush on the TodayTix app, $20 student rush, 1 ticket per ID, and $50 in-person rush, up to 2 tickets per person. So please go check out The Saviors. I really enjoyed this play. Come back in the comments below and let me know what you thought of The Saviors. Let me know that I'm being too picky. I know I am, but I'm telling you I liked it. All right, just because I have some light nitpick criticisms doesn't mean I didn't love the play. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope when you go see it, you will not be bored or confused. Bye.
What's in front of me?